What's cracking, guys? Omar Isaf here, back with another video. Back again with Dr. Pack. What's going on, my man? The best educational memes in the game. Give a proper introduction to the audience.
My name is Patrick Skorakakis, researcher slash coach slash chief editor of Reps Research Review slash model and the one rank above sponsored athlete for Rascal, so Rascal co-owner as of now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Right.
But yeah, that's me. I like science and lifting.
I do highly encourage people to check you out. I'll link your Instagram once again in the description, and also the research review that you do.
And my bank account.
And the bank account, in case you want to make an OnlyFans donation. The topic today is something scintillating because, Dr. Pack, it seems like a lot of young whippersnappers on the TikTok, and that's what I believe they say, I've aged out of it, have been training more to failure. A new kind of guru that they're being inspired by is one Mike Mentzer, RIP.
RIP.
The general concept of training at a higher intensity, so closer to failure or at failure, at lower volumes, and also less frequent times. So maybe they're hitting a body part once or twice per week. And a lot of them are saying, I've experienced the best results of my training career. Why didn't I do this sooner? I was doing too much junk volume. And kind of tying this in together, can you talk to us about this topic? We're talking about hypertrophy today. People trying to attain maximum or optimal, doesn't exist, hypertrophy, and now they're kind of moving more towards training to failure, training less frequently, and doing less total sets. What's going on? Is this an element of placebo, believing in a program? Can you shine some light on this topic?
Especially as evidence-based fitness became a thing and we started looking more at the research, that led to its own sort of echo chamber of hype and just in general new trends that were set. If you remember back in the day when the infamous meta-analysis on training frequency came out, so around 2017, Schoenfeld and colleagues found that training with a higher training frequency was better. There was nobody in the fitness world that wasn't preaching for, hey, train your muscles 2 to 3 times per week, muscle protein synthesis this, muscle protein synthesis that, you're leaving gains on the table. 2 years later, it was found that it's overall volume that matters versus just training frequency. Now, what we've seen with training volume in the past is that there's a dose-response relationship between hypertrophy and training volume, where if you're doing 1 to 4 sets per muscle group per week, you're making around 65% of your potential gains. If you're doing 5 to 9, 10 sets per week, approximately, you're making around 80% of your maximal gains. And if you want that extra 20%, you gotta go in the 10 to 20 set range. However, that created a culture of, okay, more volume and extreme volumes.
Massive amounts of reps. And so you're like totally swollen.
And it sort of pushed away the low volume crowd that existed before with Mike Mentzer, Dorian Yates, and so on and so forth, where the idea was you're doing a handful of sets per muscle group per week, and you're focusing on all-out intensity of effort. Many people, when doing higher volume training splits, and obviously that's a bit of a generalization, right? Terms and conditions apply, may have been half-assing some of those sets and thus not going as close to failure as they think, which is important for hypertrophy. And when switching to a lower volume training approach, where they're still hitting, 6 to 10 sets per muscle group per week, because that's not a lot, right? And they're seeing greater gains because they are really pushing themselves hard and because they have the time to focus on those particular sets. I think there is a notion of placebo because it's very difficult to really know whether you're actually making gains because of that specific training split, or maybe it's because you've been training for a longer time, right?
Right.
It's difficult to separate signal from noise, but I think the idea that you go in the gym, you attack those sets,
You have to achieve failure.
creates a very, very positive environment as far as feedback from your own training goes. Now, I also do, as I mentioned, feel that these people still end up doing enough training volume where they're not really doing 2 sets of biceps per week, but rather they're still close to that optimal range, but maybe not deep within it. So it is a situation where I'd be very cautious with extrapolating, from just anecdotal evidence and just reports of people making more gains, because how do you go about assessing those gains, right?
Yeah, and especially your average lifter where, you have to have the self-awareness. It's like, oh, I gained 10 pounds of muscle. I'm like, okay, we've seen the photos. Is that necessarily the case? I feel like I've gotten bigger and stronger than ever before. It's like, That's hard. How do you separate all those things? 100%, especially when you're in that echo chamber, and to your point, the placebo of buying into it.
Just a little asterisk next to Mike Menzer, and to acknowledge the potential existence of survivorship bias.
Yeah.
The reason we still remember Mike Menzer or Dorian Yates is because they were among the best.
Yeah.
Right? We don't see all the people that have done maybe a few sets every other week and haven't made great gains, or have done like only a couple of sets per muscle group per week for long periods of time and have just maintained.
Yep.
So that's very important to note.
Give the body what it needs, and as you know, in a lot of my sayings has been trained to stimulate, not annihilate.
But let's say someone wants to take a lower volume approach. What are some general recommendations?
Yeah. As far as you taking that information and applying it in real life, I'd say your best bet, if you're not just your average person looking to just get fitter and healthier, if you were to do somewhere between 5 and 10 sets per muscle group per week, which would still be, you know, moderate volume, but low enough in practice to still be very time efficient, and keeping those sets between the 5 and 25 rep range, like if we're talking about hypertrophy, but potentially maybe more in the 5 to 15 rep range, and very close to failure, meaning anywhere between 2 to 0 reps in reserve, maybe even 3, as long as those reps in reserve are true reps in reserve. A set of 3 reps in reserve is a pretty hard set. G-checking yourself, as we say in Greece, and making sure that you are actually very close to failure. I think regardless of whether you decide to train a muscle once or twice per week, as long as you're hitting that overall volume threshold, even if you're training twice a week, my personal bet, Rascal Apparel bet, would be that you're still going to be making very meaningful hypertrophy gains. A general thing that we see with all these observations and these two extremes, the super high volume freaks and the super low volume freaks, is that at the end of the day, a potent stimulus is what wins. Whatever you can do and keep doing it consistently over time with a high intensity of effort is what will probably allow you to make the most gains over your life. So if you're trying to force 10 to 20 sets per week and you constantly keep missing out training weeks because you're too tired or because you feel like you can't get that volume in, then that may not be the best approach to you, even if it's supposed to be optimal. Unless you're, you know, a bodybuilder whose life depends on gaining as much muscle as possible, chances are you're going to be fine as long as you can sustain that for years and years to come. Muscle growth takes time.
The results you realize will be totally dependent on the energy you put forth. So give it your all and realize your ambitions.
Crushed it once again. Where can people find you?
Oh man.
Come on, show yourself out.
Instagram, Dr. _pack, pack. But more importantly, Linktree/drpack, DRPAK, for all my links, research, podcasts, coaching, and my bank details, obviously, so you can just send me money for no reason. Because, hey,
if you want to make a random $1 million donation, he'll look the other way, right? Towards research and review.
Yeah.
But make sure you give Dr. Pack a follow. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, make sure to like the damn video. And we'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next one. Peace.
Peace. This is insulting in the UK.
You think anybody wants a roundhouse kick to the face? Well, I want it bad, boys. Bow to your sensei! Forget about it.